nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition with Jeanette Roche.
Hello, thanks for watching. Here's a look at some of the stories we've been following this week. Lethbridge Mayor Chris SPEARMAN says he's in full support of the new restrictions that were announced by the province on Tuesday night. With the news of more vaccines being distributed to the younger population, SPEARMAN says that people in Lethbridge should continue to get vaccinated so we can get back to normal.
We need to make sure that everybody in the community is supporting the message. Everybody is doing the best that they can and abiding by the health orders in every way possible. Anybody who is not abiding by the health orders and encouraging others to not abide by the health orders is really undermining the message and potentially harming public health in our city.
It can be difficult to think of others when your business is struggling amid COVID-19 restrictions. There is one Lethbridge eatery, however, that is doing what they can to help others abroad who are even worse off. Naveen Day has that story.
Immigrant families know how difficult life can be abroad. And even amid tough restrictions that are hurting her business, Diana Lee, who owns Mama La Vietnamese Cuisine, says we need to help others beyond our borders.
In India specifically, I just felt a personal connection because my roots are tied to Vietnam, and my family members that live there live in a similar way to Indian culture where it's very crowded, everybody lives very closely together. We live with lots of our family members in one household, and despite what's going on right now here in Canada, locally in Lethbridge, it's a lot better than what's going on in India. We have homes to isolate in, we have proper PPE to wear. People in India right now are just crowded in hospitals and lacking government aid right now. Everything's just overwhelmed.
Mama La recently hosted Eating to Help Others, a campaign that took proceeds from food sales to provide emergency COVID-19 relief to India, a country dealing with an overwhelming surge of cases. The amount raised was then matched by the restaurant before it was donated to the Indian Red Cross Society.
For the weekend, for Friday and Saturday, we raised over $2,200, and then personally we'll round that up to $5,000. I believe that $1 in Canadian dollars into Indian rupees is like a penny, so I'm sure we'll be able to help many, many people with the $5,000.
For Bridge City News, I'm Naveen Day.
Thank you, Naveen. The baseball community in Western Canada has lost one of the best. Mitch Ball, a Southern Alberta umpire for the Western Canadian Baseball League, recently passed away of COVID-19. Ball spent more than 2 decades with the WCBL and the city of Lethbridge. As Ainsley O'Reilly explains, he was adored by many and will be remembered for his infectious personality.
He was that type of person who would do anything for you. It didn't matter who you were. He always entered a room with a smile on his face, and you were hard pressed not to be smiling after the interaction with him was over.
There's not too many umpires that you're excited to see, but Mitch was a guy that every time he's at the diamond, he always brings a great attitude. He's always happy to see everyone.
On Saturday, COVID-19 took the life of Mitch Ball, a Southern Alberta father and husband, known for being one of the most experienced baseball umpires in the country.
The outpouring of emotion over this tragic death has been, country and beyond countrywide, where he's established relationships with umpiring crews and tournament organizers from all over Canada and beyond.
A baseball career spanning more than 25 years, the Western Canadian Baseball League says his spirit was bigger than baseball and hopes his demeanor lives on in the sport.
Recognition of the importance of the demeanor part of the game of baseball and bring that enjoyment of the game to the field each and every time you come.
It was easy to coach when he was there. He just his command of the game and his relationships that he built with all the coaches, all the respect that the coaches had for him was immense.
A GoFundMe has been created for the Ball family, and as of Monday has generated over $66,000. For Bridge City News, I'm Ainsley O'Reilly.
Thank you, Ainsley. We're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back with provincial headlines from this week. Plus, what do an octopus, an Oscar, and Lethbridge have in common? Stay with us. We'll tell you coming up later in the show. Welcome back. The government of Alberta announced new health restrictions Tuesday to try and curb the spread of COVID-19. The province has the highest per capita cases in all of North America right now, close to 2,000 per day. Beginning this past Friday, all students kindergarten through grade 12 will move to online learning until May 25th after the long weekend. Retail stores will move to 10% capacity. Outdoor social gatherings will go from 10 to just 5 people. Places of worship will be limited to a maximum of 15 people. Funerals will drop from 20 to just 10 people. Personal wellness services, including hair and nail salons, will close for the next 3 weeks beginning on May 10th. Restaurants will move to takeout and delivery only. Adult and youth performances will close, and healthcare professionals, including doctors and dentists, will be by appointment only. Kenny also says the province will be doubling the fine for those caught breaking the public health orders from $1,000 to $2,000.
The key thing I'm looking for is to see the numbers, first of all, start to flatline and then come down. And I think if we can start to see a period of sustained decline in our average daily new cases and in the total active case count, that will be a strong indication that we can begin moving towards relaxing some of these measures because of the vaccine. I mean, when we were earlier in the pandemic, we were kind of on a tightrope without a net. The vaccine is our net now. And so I think when we believe it's prudent to move forward with reopening, we will do so knowing that the vaccine is helping to interrupt chains of transmission and also keep people out of hospitals.
Alberta's Justice Minister, Casey Madu, was asked why police did not intervene and write tickets at a recent rodeo in Bowden, Alberta, which drew a crowd of around 4,000 people.
Local law enforcement and Alberta Health Services collaborated on the rodeo that took place in Bowden. And ultimately, they made the decision at that point in time, and this is what I'm hearing after the fact, to not intervene whilst that particular event is going on, but to, deploy intelligence so that they can follow up with the individuals involved in planning the event. I can tell you there is ongoing investigation with respect to that particular event.
An Alberta woman in her 50s has died from a rare blood clot disorder after receiving the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. It's the third reported death in Canada following a vaccination with the product of AstraZeneca.
Or the message that people need to get vaccinated. And with the risks from COVID as high as they currently are, the best vaccine is the one that's available right now to anyone and everyone who is eligible. I should also note that there are risks of blood clots when contracting COVID, and those risks are higher than the risk from a blood clot from a recombinant vaccine like the Covishield or AstraZeneca vaccines.
A 54-year-old woman from Quebec died last month, and health officials in New Brunswick confirmed that a man in his 60s has also died after getting the AstraZeneca shot. 2 weeks ago, health officials announced that an Alberta man in his 60s inoculated with the same vaccine had also been diagnosed with a blood clot but was recovering. Teachers, early childhood educators, and support staff started booking COVID-19 vaccine appointments this week. Premier Jason Kenney says with more vaccines coming in, Alberta is expanding the vaccination rollout to further protect schools and childcare facilities. More than 52,000 teachers, 29,000 support staff, and 24,000 childcare workers are eligible to be vaccinated. Alberta Teachers Association President Jason Schilling issued a two-word statement in reaction to the announcement, saying, "About time." Meanwhile, the Lethbridge School District also says this news by the province is a huge relief.
It's been difficult from a division perspective to hear the government time and again say, essentially by saying no, that teachers and frontline staff workers were not essential within our communities. And I know with the same breath, the government would say we need to keep our kids in schools. And yet we've really been juggling as a division, and every division has been, with rising cases. We've had significant pressures finding enough substitute teachers to keep kids in school, because obviously if we don't have staff, we can't support student learning within the building.
We need to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more news. MLAs in Alberta will not be returning to the legislature for 2 weeks due to the record-breaking COVID caseloads. House Leader Jason Nixon says the government has determined that having members return to Edmonton after constituency week is no longer prudent. Kenny's cabinet will meet virtually, and legislature committees will also continue with members participating remotely. Lethbridge East MLA Nathan NEUDORF says with a strong third wave hitting the province, MLAs have no choice but to work remotely like many other Albertans.
We want to make sure that it's a clear signal for everyone that this wave is serious. And we understand a lot of Albertans have had to make a very huge adjustment to their lives and lifestyles. And so have we, to help us focus strictly on COVID right now and not be debating other pieces of legislation, though necessary. We can move that off to put all of our efforts and all of our focus exactly on COVID and a response right now to help get these numbers down and make sure we're managing our healthcare system as effectively and carefully as possible.
Meanwhile, many government leaders are being blasted during the pandemic, mostly due to the lockdowns and lack of vaccines. According to Alberta's opposition leader, Rachel Notley, the Kenney government's public health orders are not working.
Alberta families and businesses have been calling for some notice, some warning, some metrics that indicate where we're going. Jason Kenney has always refused to share his modeling with the public, and that's part of what has destroyed public trust in him and his government. So it's unfortunate that he still refuses to level with Albertans about what decisions are triggered by what metrics. And indeed, he's continuing to talk about a 2 to 3 week shutdown. You know, that's just not realistic. He must stop this pattern.
According to Notley, every other province has contended with the COVID-19 and the struggles with keeping the economy on track during this unprecedented health crisis, adding that Alberta's economic recovery lags behind the rest of the country. MLA Nathan NEUDORF says right now he's hearing it from both sides, the right and the left.
It is tough when you're the one trying to find the way through it, and there's no perfect answer. Alberta is known for its diversity, from our fantastic, gorgeous rural areas and that farming lifestyle to our two awesome metropolitan cities. One rule, one size doesn't fit all. That's another factor that makes it so difficult to try to manage this in a ways appropriate for each age level, each demographic, each rural, urban, and metro center. But hopefully we can get through this sooner rather than later.
The first 2 days of trial for Alberta Pastor James Coates have wrapped up. Pastor Coates of Grace Life Church near Edmonton was jailed over a month for breaking public health orders during the pandemic. John Carpe, president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, is representing Coates in the trial. He joined Bridge City News' Hal Roberts for a Q&A earlier this week.
John, tell me about your defense and the evidence the province was able to present against your client. We've had 2 days of trial, Monday, May 3rd and Tuesday, May 4th. And the central defense is that these health orders themselves are unjustified violations of the charter freedoms of religion, conscience, association, and peaceful assembly. And in spite of having had lockdowns for over 13 months, the Alberta government did not present any evidence in court on May 3rd or May 4th to try to support with science the lockdown measures that have been in place now for 13 months. So the government will be forced sooner or later to put forward evidence, but it's now been adjourned to early June for the next trial date.
So what can we expect to see at that next trial date in early June?
Well, we're going to get a formal ruling to the effect that the charter rights and freedoms of Pastor Coates and the congregation of Grace Life Church, that their charter rights and freedoms were indeed violated. And then it's going to be setting a new trial date again for when the government's going to be forced to put its medical and scientific evidence before the court. So it'll be a brief hearing in June with primary focus on when the government's going to man up and show us the science.
Coming up later in our show, we speak with an Alberta psychology professor who helped a filmmaker win an Oscar. But first, we speak with the CEO of a Calgary company who says manufacturing a vaccine here could happen sooner rather than later. That's after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney announced that reopening the province's economy would depend on more Albertans getting vaccinated. So, wouldn't it move us in the right direction to have vaccines developed here in Canada? According to one Calgary-based company, this isn't a crazy thought. In fact, if the right funding is received from the feds and the province, we could have vaccinations developed right here in Alberta. Brad Stevens is the president and CEO of Northern RNA. He joined me earlier this week from Calgary. Now, many Albertans may not realize some of the industries that call Alberta home. Can you describe for our viewers what Northern RNA does?
Sure. We are a relatively newly established CDMO, that stands for Contract Development and Manufacturing Organization. And so basically what we do is we work with other companies by way of contract, as part of the name. We try and what we do, work with other companies to develop raw materials that they might need, help them in the design of some of their products. Then we enter into manufacturing contracts and then provide them the raw products, raw materials that will go into vaccines or whatever they might be using the materials for.
Many Albertans are anxious for their opportunity to acquire a vaccine. So can you tell us about the role your company can take to actually make this a reality?
Sure. So right now, on our early phase 1 production, we are focused on the development of 2 raw materials. One are called cap analog, and the other one's called plasmid DNA. And cap analog is really kind of one of the essential elements to make messenger RNA. You've heard that's the new buzzword in the world today.
Exactly.
Is messenger RNA. Yeah, it is. It's new technology. It's disruptive technology, I believe. And it's the basis of a couple of the most well-known vaccines. But we also think that it will be the basis of lots of other applications in the future once the pandemic is gone. And so we make some of the essential raw materials that will go into these vaccines or whatever they might be used for in the future. And so we're working with, as I said, vaccine and other developers, providing these raw materials as essential elements in the production of vaccines and other materials.
So Brad, we recently had Andrew McIsaac of Applied Pharmaceutical Innovation on our show. Can you describe the relationship between the two organizations?
Sure. So as I said, we're a relatively new CDMO, and as we got started and started to introduce ourselves to not only Andrew's company, but other companies in the life science area and pharmaceutical area in Alberta, I've had some really great conversations with Andrew and his team. They in some ways they act as a little bit of an information hub. They know a lot about what's going on, and they can. Andrew's been great for us in transmitting information and us being allowed to convey information to him as well. Technically speaking, as I understand my discussions with him, is that his company really provides a service at the back end of a vaccine or at the back end of the process, where whatever material ultimately gets in the bottle and gets in the packaging, that's kind of referred to as fill finish. That's kind of their expertise, and they're looking to expand that expertise. And we're really looking forward, with our partners, to working with them. You really begin to see how you can get the whole value chain or the supply chain right within the borders of Alberta itself. And that's what we're trying to work towards, where we're involved in a little bit more of the upfront, the manufacturing, and so that if we can get that full supply chain in Alberta, we won't be caught off guard again.
Have you received inquiries from other countries to manufacture vaccines for their citizens?
Oh, for sure. When they see the capacity that we're building very quickly, you got to realize, Jeanette, that we took the keys to our new facility here in January 4th. We've done a complete overhaul of the facility, remarkably, in about 90 days to get us up and producing. And so originally we weren't going to expand until next year, but the demand has been so big from other countries, other companies, that we took our phase 2 and moved it in to this year. And so, yes, there has been lots of interest expressed by other companies from all around the world.
If this were to go through, do you feel that it would still be on time, or do you feel that maybe by then it's too late because everyone would have been vaccinated already?
Yeah, great question. That's the one we always get. It's never too late. There's going to be booster shots. I think that all of the leading companies have come out and indicated that there's going to be booster shots. Nobody knows for sure how long or what form that's going to take. Not only in Alberta, but Canada and the world.
Well, we will look forward to hearing more about how all of this is going to develop, and we wish you all the best. So thanks so much for your time today, Brad.
Thanks, Jeanette.
Up next, an Oscar-winning documentary that has a Lethbridge, Alberta connection. Canadian involvement in Oscar-winning films happens every so often, but when it's an Albertan whose involvement helped make the film a success, we like to take a special notice. This week I spoke with a Lethbridge woman who's also an octopus expert, who was the scientific advisor on an Oscar-winning documentary called My Octopus Teacher. The film tells the story of a South African filmmaker named Craig Foster, who spent a year with a wild octopus in the Great African Sea Forest at the southwest tip of Africa.
A lot of people say an octopus is like an alien. But the strange thing is, as you get closer to them, you realize that we're very similar.
Joining me is Dr. Jennifer Mathers. She's a psychology professor at the University of Lethbridge and an expert in octopus. Dr. Mathers, thanks so much for joining me today. It's so great to have you on.
Fun to be here.
So this film, My Octopus Teacher, which you were involved in, now, as I understand it, was 10 years in the making. So please tell me, at what point did you get involved in this film and what was your role?
I think it was 2018, and what happened is I had been an advisor to one of the BBC Blue Planet films. They are very, very big sticklers about accuracy, and they had some footage of Craig Foster's, and they wanted me to make sure that this was scientifically accurate. So I spent some time working with them, and then the editor asked me, she said, "The filmmaker would like to talk to you. Is that okay?" And I said, "Yes, of course." And he said, and we got to know one another. And he said, "I'm making this film and I want to make sure it's as accurate as I could possibly make it be. Can I consult with you?" And I said, "Sure," because it's my personal belief that science belongs to the people. Always, if somebody asks me for help or asks for information, I'll do my best to provide it. So he said, "Well, we need to have you come to South Africa." I said, "Oh, okay." So we spent 10 days down there basically looking at pieces of film and saying, Yeah, that's right. And you probably shouldn't say that.
Got it.
Making
Yeah. So you were a consultant. They were needing your expert opinion to make sure that it was accurate.
That's right.
Okay. So did you sit in on the editing process or on the writing process, or did you get a look at the script, or how did it work? What exactly did you do?
The process from the time that Craig first made acquaintance with the octopus to the time that my octopus teacher was shown was 10 years. And there's an amazing number of people from, in many cases, all around the world that helped them to get as good as they thought. So it was fascinating to see all the pieces come together.
That's really, really neat. Now, what was your reaction when you found out that the film had won an Oscar for Best Documentary? How did you, were you just watching the Oscars on May 3rd like everyone else, or did someone let you know?
Yes, I was watching the Oscars on May 3rd. And yes, of course, I had my fingers crossed. But you've got to understand, for Best Documentary, it turns out, I never knew anything about this before, okay? There is a film festival called Jackson Wild, which is essentially the Oscars of documentary. And my octopus teacher was nominated for 6 awards in Jackson Wild and won 3 of them, including the Best Picture. So we already knew that people thought it was good. And of course, when I watched it and when I talked to my friends and they watched it, everybody knew it was good, but we knew it was good that the experts thought it was good. And I have to admit, I went onto the web a couple of days before the Oscars, and there's somebody you can go to who says, this is my pick for best this and best that and best documentary. And he picked My Octopus Teacher to be the best documentary. So I was crossing my fingers like crazy when I watched.
Did they give you special acknowledgement during the speech?
No. Pippa, who was the head producer, said people from all around the world, and she included the United States, and I have a suspicion that she meant me and that Canada gets subsumed under the U.S., which happens a lot.
Well, all of us here in Alberta are saying yay and wishing you a congratulations on your work. Well done. Thank you so much for being with us today, Dr. Mathers.
Thank you.
Dr. Jennifer Mathers is a psychology professor at the University of Lethbridge and an octopus expert. Well, that's our show. Please join me again for another weekend edition of Bridge City News. I'm Jeanette Roche. Have a great week.